Afgri is an agricultural services and foods group offering farmers, banking, brokers and logistics, trading and retail services and agricultural products as well. Afgri has a price to earnings ratio of 10 and a market cap of 2.2 billion rand. Last month, Afgri sold its 1 billion rand debtors book to the Land Bank to improve its balance sheet and pursue more profitable opportunities. Tshepo, let's kick off with you on that. P of 10. You're talking about relative to peers within sort of the farming agri space. Is this the company that you were talking of or alluding to?
Not quite. We have been invested in Afgri in the past. We currently aren't. Our focus will be on the next stock, I think, that we'll talk about. I think the business model for Afgri makes some sense. Again, given the sector, it will have the same sort of exposure as the first two that we've had in terms of exposure to weather. But what the business does quite well is they do a little bit of everything. So they sell some parts to farms, they sell exposure to tractors, they'll rent them out. They'll previously they provided you with some financing for all of that, which now they've sold off. So the business is really looking at tapping into all spheres of that sector.
Yeah. Good move to sell the debtors book.
I don't know, I suppose. I mean, it's got a new CEO, Chris Venter, who's, it's been a bit of a disappointing stock over the last 5 years. It's not really gone where you'd want it to go. And in theory, agriculture and farming generally should be a great industry to be in now, because we know there's 7 billion people on the planet. They all need to be fed. There's an enormous push for increased agricultural productivity. There's been some concentration in the sector. So if you go back 50 years, there were lots of small farmers with small farms. Now you're increasingly getting these big, successful agri-businesses. I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a this and a bit of that business. They expanded, they vertically integrated, they got into some of the feeds and poultry business themselves. I'm not sure that was a good move in retrospect. It's only a 2 billion rand corporation. The hardware stores where they sell, you know, hammers and Sanu Riverware, I'm not sure how much of a business that is. I don't know. For me, it just feels a bit like a mishmash.
Tshepo, what is interesting about this stock, and I think in the farming sector, agri sector as a whole, and we were talking about this earlier, is just the volatility that we experience within the sector. And yes, you know, food security is very important, but it's just such a costly and volatile business to be in. I mean, would you even want exposure to this kind of sector as an investor?
Well, I don't think volatility on the face of it is a bad thing. I think, in my mind, if you're comfortable as an investor looking through the cycle, what you want is a business.
Even fuel impacts the agri sector quite extensively.
It does. But what you want is a company that over a 3 to 4 year period can look through that, and over that period give you decent, strong earnings, in spite of the volatility that will occur in between that. So I don't think volatility.
What Paul calls mishmash, do you call diversification?
Look, I think some of the parts have struggled quite a bit, and we're seeing some of them sell off a key leg to that. So it has proved to be a difficult environment for this mismatch, as Paul calls it. But I think some of them have actually done fairly well for Afgri.
Paul, hot or not for you?
No, not hot. I mean, a practical example is they decide to get into the poultry business. It's not as though there aren't major competition there in the form of, you know, Rainbow and the others. Then they get hit by Brazilian imports and so on. Now they're backing out of that same space. So, no, not hot for me.
Tshepo, hot or not?
Look, I think from a quality of balance sheet perspective, we're probably looking at not hot, even though the valuations.
You're so diplomatic every time you say not hot.
On the face of it, valuations are attractive,
not cheap enough
but not
for Tshepo.